The freeze drying industry is growing exponentially, both in the home freeze drying side, but also in running a freeze drying business. I'm going to introduce you to a company called Boreas Freeze Drying. This is a commercial freeze drying company that offers services to freeze drying businesses who want to scale their production. They offer a full suite of services, including toll freeze drying, milling, where you can powderize your dried out freeze dried product, as well as co-packing services. But the point of this video is for them to give you a glimpse of what they see trending in the freeze drying industry, given that they work with so many clients that are doing different applications in freeze drying. Now, this video is a collection of videos of my interview with Boreas Freeze Drying, including a tour of their facility. So if you want to know more about Boreas, you can check out the thumbnails coming up at the end of this video. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe now and give this video a like so it gets out to more people on YouTube. Now let me introduce you to Heath and Blaine of Boreas Freeze Drying.
Okay, so with a lot of people contacting you to freeze dry their product, what are some like actual food items that are unique that you've seen kind of come through that you're like, man, people are freeze drying this?
The juices are pretty unique. That's not something when we first got into this that I realized people were freeze drying for powders to go into beverage products, things like that.
Yeah, like animal parts for pet treats.
Yeah.
We get a lot of calls on that, like what we would consider byproducts of chicken gizzard or something like that. You know, I'm not naming anything specific, but it's like wild stuff that I was like, okay, well, we probably try that for you. I have no idea. What are you going to do with this? Just random things.
What are like non-food items that you've seen come through?
Well, one of the interesting ones is like we talked about earlier, the document recovery for, you know, books or documents that have had water damage, taxidermy.
I never really understood, but the pet side of things, it's actually massive. People will pay more to feed their dogs than they will their own children. I do believe that with all my heart. Didn't compute with me, but I'm understanding it now.
So I want to go back to kind of the services side that you do. How much of this of the freeze drying recipe creation process and testing do you do for people?
First of all, the way to contact us is through our website, preservative-free.com. There's a contact form on there or our phone numbers. Normally, throughout this process, at some point, you're going to talk to Blaine. He's the sales channel. He puts up with a lot of stuff and a lot of wild questions, but he works hard to really help you out through that process.
Yeah, so the way we start is we typically take 50 to 1,000 pounds of your product. If it's something we've never tried before, maybe it's a different cut of bananas we've never tried, or maybe it's just a different type of fruit or vegetable we've never tested. Once we have that product here, we run it in our testing lab. So we do a few batches, try to dial in the recipe, understand how much we can fit per tray, what our dry times are, and if the product is at the quality, moisture content that the customer is looking for. Once they've approved the product and they're happy with the samples that we've processed, that's when we typically set up our first run and get them on the schedule.
You actually have like a mini version of your commercial freeze dryers, so the recipe just stays the same?
For the most part, yeah, it's pretty close. So we've got our big chambers. We've got 2 of those online right now, but we have a smaller unit. It's 1/20th the size of our large ones. So we're able to really, you know, I don't need 3,000 pounds of your products. I can take a couple hundred pounds, try to dial this in for you.
So what would you say to someone who says, oh, I can do the testing myself. I'll tell you what I need to do?
We have some of that, but we still typically require some amount of testing, because whenever you have a Harvest Right or a Blue Alpine or a smaller, you know, home style freeze dryer, it's not going to correlate, you know, apples to apples with our big freeze dryers.
Yeah, well, even in the commercial applications, we've seen some of it. You know, if something was on a Cudden or there's all sorts of different manufacturers of commercial, every recipe's different because every machine's different. Yeah. We want to make sure that we get it dialed in specifically for the results that you desire. And also, we don't know you, you don't know our equipment. I'm not just going to spitball you a price. I'm going to dial this thing in and make sure that we know exactly. Don't lie about the numbers, because the numbers don't lie, you know. So we trust but verify.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Yeah, so at that point we you know, decide, okay, we're going to freeze dry it. Do they want any further size reduction? Do they want the product milled at the end? That's going to be an additional cost. And then we discuss packaging. Are we going to do some sort of retail packs, or is this going to be bulk process and we ship it back in bulk bags? Once we decide on all those details, then we can set up a run and process the product. And we can typically fit about 2,500 to 3,000 pounds per chamber. Yeah, it's full disclosure with our different types of bulk packaging. You know, if you want the highest results, you're going to need like a Mylar bag. So your packaging may be more expensive with bulk if you want to use something that's has that kind of moisture barrier, and you know, it's just different options for the customer to decide on.
Yeah, some customers want double wrap bags tied off with desiccant packs in it. Some people don't want desiccant packs. I mean, usually by the time they're coming to us, they know what they want. They know what the end result is, and there's a 1,000 different ways to skin this cat, and we'll just come to an agreement and figure out what's best for the customer and getting that product back to them in an acceptable form.
Where do you see freeze drying as an industry headed, given everything you've been exposed to?
Well, it's continuing to grow. I think that where we're seeing some of the largest growth sectors would be the pet treat industry, pet food. That's really exploded here in the last 10 years, and I don't see it slowing down. We're definitely seeing more large established brands that maybe they have a dehydrated fruit product where they're doing different types of fresh fruit. They're starting to see the trends that all these freeze-dried snack companies are starting, or different brands that have dehydrated fruits are starting to do freeze-dried fruits as a snack product. So we're seeing a lot more demand there, but I would say the pet treated industry is probably the biggest that we've seen.
Well, I think it's probably the best way in the food industry to preserve. Everybody kind of agrees upon that. I think we're also seeing a shift. People are wanting to get the manufacturing from overseas out of there, back more on the state side. FDA is banning different types of products, or shift to more of a health conscious thing. And so that's a good shift. And so, yeah, we do waste so much like fruit and produce and all this. Whenever we have a way to preserve it, I think people are really starting to think through this and going, I'm looking at freeze drying as a viable option here.
Yeah, there's no preservatives you have to add to it. You can just put the product in there and it comes out exactly how it was initially intended.
What's kind of your advice for someone watching this who's thinking about getting into the freeze drying space?
I would say a lot of people have ideas. You got to think through your sourcing. You know, do you have a sustained source from this? Is it? Then it all comes down to price at the end. The dollars have got to make sense. It takes quite a bit of input depending on your product to get the amount of material out that's freeze dried. Because depending on the product, it could be 90% loss. Man, I need to sell 1,000 pounds of watermelon freeze dried. Well, you got to send me at least 10,000 pounds first. Sometimes it's the basic things they don't think through. Think through your sourcing. Think through your pricing. Do you have a viable product? Do you have a marketing strategy to get this? Do you have it sold? A lot of people can make a lot of things, but then they can't sell it. I would just encourage them to think all the way through it. Prove it on a small scale first. And as you're ready to scale up, come see us.
What I'm really excited about though now is we're going to take a look at their facility, look at the freeze dryers and what they've actually built here in Mount Vernon. So stay with us. We're going to go take a look and do a tour of their facility.